So I have item number 8, and it is going to be withdrawn. Councilor Bay.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items number 9.
Wait, sorry. I've just been alerted. I do have some resolutions, so I'll call that one ready. Thank you.
Yep. All right. I have items number 9 through 12. I believe they were talked about in some respects to exhaustion, so all of those items are ready. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Rudd.
My 3 items are ready.
Thank you, sir. Ooh, moving right along. Councilor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. So starting with items 16 and 17, I just want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that Commissioner Robinson and his team looked at the list of streets that we could do this year, and I think they did a great job by including more streets and less curbing. So, the revised list that's in front of us today is almost double the amount of streets. So I just really want to commend Commissioner Robinson and his team. I think that's a great thing. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that. If not, so items 18 through 21, does anyone have questions on those items? Assuming not, I do just have one item on, one question on item 22, Mary Robinson, if you're here.
Yes, I'm here, Counselor. Good afternoon.
Yeah, so I think this is the one that's the revocable permit for Upstate to have the pedestrian bridge over Adams Street. I guess I'm kind of fine with this one. I know they've gone all the way through the process, but I guess in general, what's our policy on approving these? So, I mean, I think, obviously we went through this and it doesn't impact the right of way, it doesn't impact the road, but also, we see a lot of them downtown that are kind of abandoned, right? And they also have an impact sometimes of reducing foot traffic, where people can then work downtown, park in the garage, and go right in their office building without ever having been downtown to, interact with the businesses downtown and the community. So just kind of on a forward-looking basis, how do we evaluate whether or not we're comfortable with having these footbridges?
That's a good question. We do have the revocable nature, so that if the bridge is abandoned or they're not utilizing it, we do have the right to tell them to remove it, and they have a year to remove it. I don't know how we necessarily penalize them if they don't remove it. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to check with the law department. But this proposed ped bridge it's not to connect to a garage. It's connecting to the new Upstate Health and Wellness Center to the main hospital.
Okay. Yeah, and I think this one's different. I mean, with it being health related, it's kind of a different situation. I guess I would just say ongoing, if there were to be someone that is kind of just the downtown connecting a parking garage to an office, let's kind of talk about it before it gets too far along.
Can I jump in on that real quick, Councilor Green?
Sure, go ahead.
Because I'm just wondering, Mary, if there might be a way, how we set aside a certain amount in an account, I guess, or if they do a street cut, maybe you said there's no way to penalize them to get them to take it down. Maybe there's a chunk of money set aside from them to be able to get it down if we need to. Just a thought.
Yeah, I guess that would require that they maintain some type of bond, and for the life of the structure, and that then we would have the bond to act on.
And then we wouldn't be stuck, but that's just a thing.
Yep. I could consult with the law department to see if that's, typically we do a performance and maintenance bond if we're having something installed that's ours and it's a warranty type thing for a certain period of time. It's not really something that's open for years on end. We could give some thought to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just on an ongoing basis we should look at it, because I think a lot of these came about in like the 60s and 70s when people were saying like, how can you have your employees not interact with the city at all? And that's obviously not what we want now. So just on an ongoing basis, I think we just got to look at what the best practices.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? Thank you, Madam President. Those are my items.
Thank you, Counselor, and please forgive me for my COVID brain, but we're going to have to go backwards here. I'm going to go back to my item 8 and call that one withdrawn again. I am going to refer back to item 9 to Counselor Bay.
Mike, on. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, just for clarity, and maybe the clerk or even if Catherine is available, can help out here. Called item 9 ready, but there was some changes, as many know, or some amendments to, or modification to legislation. And so I guess my question to the clerk is this item to be put on by waiver today, or?
No, Counselor. It was substituted, which was the proper way to do it, and we substituted it, and I sent out an email to all counselors on Saturday morning with the substituted legislation, and it's been up online for the public since Friday evening. So we've done everything we can to make sure everybody's aware that this has been substituted, and it's ready to vote in the form it's in now.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome. Thank you. Now we'll go on. Counselor Rudd called his items ready. Counselor Green is good. Counselor Carney.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 23, and that's ready unless anyone has any other questions.
Nice cut.
Thank you. I'm lucky that I have a thick head of hair, but when no barber shops are open, I just had my girlfriend shave my head.
All righty. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Majok.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 24 through 28, and they are all ready. Also, I have one waiver item as well.
No, the waiver is on the back show. Just call 24 through 28. They're ready?
All right. 24
Can I ask
through 28.
Question on 24, agnostic of interfaith. So probably for like maybe Mary Vossler or somebody kind of like budget finance oriented. But I understood not this current budget that we just approved last week, but the year
And you
before
got to
that.
back up. Your like mouth is in the camera. Thanks.
Sorry, I moved to a different spot because my phone is dying. Anyways, we moved. There are a bunch of things that have historically been special objects of expense. I think this contract is one of them. So, and there's other items like it, like TNT. And we moved those special objects into departments. And they still, for whatever reason, kind of show up in a special object, but they're in the departments now. So what's the proper process for one of these items? Are they supposed to, like they get it, they're in the budget, then the entity is supposed to, do they need a contract with us, or do they just show up and say, hey, we're asking for the authority from the council to spend this, and to the extent the council has questions, we answer them, and then after they have that authority, then they like submit a bill later? Like what, because it seems like what's happened is it's in the budget, the entity thinks of it as they already have the authority, and then they wait till they've done all the work and they submit the bill, but they never got the authority from the council. So like what's missing in this step, in these steps? Or what should happen and what's not happening?
So can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so for the interface works, this went over to the police department, and the account number that it's being charged to is not a special objects of account. It is a police department account. There were TNT, Parks Conservancy, the Neighborhood Watch Group also went over to the police department. They come to the council in the beginning of the year, like Neighborhood Watch as an example, and TNT. They present a budget to the council with deliverables on that budget, and then the council votes to enter into an agreement with the appropriate amount of funding that is budgeted for. The law department writes a contract up. The contract gets executed, and at that point, once we receive a bill from Interfaith Works and or TNT as an example, that's when they get paid.
Is the process different as a department line instead of a special object of account?
No, if it was the special object of account, the same situation would apply. We would get a contract agreement with deliverables, so that they're accountable for the money.
It would be the same, right? It would be the same.
Yeah.
So like the land bank is a special object of account. We enter into a contract with them as soon as they get their budget allocation, and then they spend it down over they get the money later.
Correct.
Okay. So what didn't happen here is nobody came from Interfaith to review their contract and approve their contract for the year.
I don't know what the communication was between the police department and whoever had set up and the council, because this is late in the season to be putting these on the agenda.
So I'm just curious if there's more than Interfaith that this occurred with. Like, I think TNT did it probably more appropriately, right? They asked. I guess I would ask: is there any kind of reconciliation that shows whether, or do we know if Interfaith is alone on this, or how many of the other entities that get funded kind of similarly, basically took the same path and maybe even are on like a later course and still coming through?
No, I believe like Literacy Coalition is one. They gave a budget to the city, to the council, and this is a plan with how they were going to spend that money. TNT also did it, and so did Neighborhood Watch. The follow-up as to where they spent the money, they don't report to the budget office. They report to the department.
Do you know if like the Parks Conservancy submitted a budget earlier in the year? I know they're also aligned.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they have even asked for their allocation yet for fiscal year 20. I'd have to take a look.
Right. I know they were about to, but that's where I was trying to understand if they fall into the same situation as Interfaith, or if they're more like TNT.
Parks Conservancy is a lot smaller amount of money. I believe it's around $9,000.
It's $9,000. But I'm just saying, like, did they ask permission? Did they say how they would spend it? Perspective, is it similar to Interfaith, or is it similar to the other organizations you're mentioning?
With Parks
I don't know.
Conservancy,
I'm
I
just
don't
wondering
know.
if Interfaith is all alone, but
Can you repeat that, Counselor? I didn't hear you.
I was just wondering if I guess it sounds like most of the entities did more what they're supposed to, and Interfaith and maybe, I don't know about others, but.
Well, they should be reporting back at some point to those departments, whoever is overseeing them at the police department.
Right. Okay. So when it's a department expense, they get authority, they get kind of like buy from the department, and they still have to get it approved, their contract approved by the council.
Yeah, it's considered a professional service, so that has to come to the council to approve the funding and the contract that they are entering into with the city.
Okay, I've beaten the horse enough, but if anybody else has questions, feel free.
Anything else? Madam President, all my items are ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 29. I know Counselor Hogan wanted to make a few comments on this, so I'll go ahead and allow that at this time. Counselor Hogan.
Thanks, Counselor Allen. I
welcome.
will vote in the affirmative for this, only because this property is shared by two different entities, and one of them is a pharmacy. But I have made my opinion clear, and it's in the documents I believe the Planning Commission has, is that they have a time limit to complete the improvements to the area of a year, from when they start to when they finish. And on that understanding, I will go along with this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So item 29 is ready.
Thank you. Counselor Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 30 and 31. One is 30 is the environmental impact statement regarding the lead ordinance, the proposed lead ordinance. And 31 is the bottle bill to include wine and liquor and spirits into the recycling program. So if, unless anybody has any questions, I call those items ready.
It's the second one is to make it a deposit, right?
Yes, yeah. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. Yes, so wines and spirits, to get those bottles out of the blue bins and make them the kind of incentive, nickel back like cans.
Right. And then what's the process for the lead ordinance from here?
So the final environmental impact statement is very similar to the original, the draft. There wasn't much change between the two. There were changes made to the ordinance itself. So this is the first phase. We've once we theoretically adopt this today, the environmental impact statement, then the ordinance will be introduced at the next session, and then we will hold that for a few sessions to make sure we have public feedback and input on the ordinance itself. So this is kind of the preliminary, setting the ground for the ordinance to be introduced potentially at the next session. And then that will be held, I believe, for 2 sessions to allow counselor input and public input as well.
So does it become harder to adjust things once,
No, the environmental impact statement shouldn't impact any potential changes to the ordinance itself. So the environmental impact statement is, it's quite a hefty document. It's available online, but I forget how many pages, but close to 100, I think, 60, 80, something like that. That basically just lays the groundwork for all the data and collection that we've done so far, and our arguments and our analysis of why the ordinance, why we feel the ordinance is, using best practices. But any changes that would anyone would like to make to the ordinance, this wouldn't really impact that moving forward.
Okay.
So, any other questions, anyone? And beyond that, I believe both those items are ready.
Are there ways, as we move forward, are there ways to, it seems like a very broad blanket, which is what everybody wants, but then how do we make it so we actually can, deliver? That's my only, thing to think about, I think, as we move forward is, are there ways we can target, to, for instance, prevent the 10% of kids who are getting lead poisoned more, deliberately than touching everyone with the same.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. Part of the environmental impact statement is regarding high priority areas. So we've designated certain areas where the neighborhoods where we note the percentages to be closer to 20-25% rather than in other neighborhoods where it's less than 2%. The high the challenged areas will be designated high priority areas, and we'll focus our enforcement more in those areas. And again, an important thing to note, assuming that the ordinance does pass in any way, shape, or form, we probably won't begin any implementation until October or November at the earliest, because we'll need to train the staff, develop the programming, but it has been built in there that this isn't a catch-all, that everyone has the same burden or same, we're trying to develop it so that it focuses on the neighborhoods that need it, because this is very much so not an equal problem on the east side as it is the west side, et cetera. Are more impacted by this than others, and we've tried to adjust the legislation to reflect that.
Set, Councilor Rudd?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Councilor Majoke, you have a waiver item. Councilor Majoke, 31.
Madam President, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, I do have a waiver item, and it is ready, unless somebody has question about it. I can have Chief Mon explain it more if no one has a question.
It's for the FPS grant, correct?
Yes, it's for lead, not lead, carbon monoxide installment and all of that stuff.
All righty. No questions?
Yep. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Well, with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'll see you at 1. Adjourn.
They were on the same feet. Jeff Conway?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Okay. All right, thanks.